We've probably all heard it said that it takes a village to raise a child. And we've heard it from a lot of people. We've heard it from politicians who are trying to pass policies that show us that what they are proposing will encourage the youth of the future to succeed. We've heard it from community members like myself or a friend of yours that is saying, it's going to take all of us to have a bright future for kids. Now, when I hear that statement, I always think of when Simba is raised over Pride Rock, and everyone is coming together to celebrate his birth. Now, in this picture, you don't see everyone who comes because there are also panthers that come and cheetahs, and if you really think about it, there are predators and prey there. Now, the way we usually represent this idealized view of life is if you're going to Target to look for a picture frame and you walk down and you see stock photos. Now, stock photos look beautiful, right? They are what we want to be. They have amazing complexion and straight teeth. Now, this is what we think about oftentimes when we say it takes a village to raise a child. We imagine everyone happy and everyone working together, right? Unfortunately, that idealized view of life isn't what we find. There's something that Chap Clark calls the world beneath in his book Hurt. So while we see this and sometimes present this to one another, right? Whether you are poor or rich, whether you have all the opportunities in the world or no opportunities, there's this thing called the world beneath that especially youth have, and this is the way they view the world, right? It isn't the stock photo. When they look at adults, and oftentimes when adults look at kids, what they see is something scary, not panthers and giraffes all coming together in this idealized world, right? We see one another as scary. When youth see adults, oftentimes they see people who are disengaged, people who don't want them. And I want you to imagine when you are driving in downtown Tacoma and you see a youth, hoodie over his head, he's skateboarding. Maybe you're out of your car and you're walking past them and you pull your purse a little closer, right? Because it isn't this, it's going to take a village. And we imagine something oftentimes that's way more beautiful than the reality of the way we actually view one another, right? And so these people, these zombies, actually all live next to one another in what we call neighborhoods. Now, neighborhoods make a difference. There was this research done by Harvard and Brown universities with the Census Bureau. They followed over 20 million people from childhood until the age of 30. And what they found is that neighborhood makes a huge difference. So this is where we are right here in the red. And if you grew up in that space, you will likely, in 30 years from now, be making $27,000 a year. Now, if you were fortunate enough to live here, you'll be making $42,000 a year, which is amazing. And so what the government has done, and this is not new, they create this program where they give people vouchers to move into better neighborhoods, right? So instead of saying we're going to fix this neighborhood where we all see each other as zombies, we're going to give someone a voucher here, but what we can't figure out is how to make this space blue. And the reason for that is because we have a culture that we don't know how to develop, right? We could throw money at it, but we know that money doesn't actually change the way we see one another, right? And the reason for that is because a lot goes into these cultures. It's deep, it's ingrained, it's the way we just treat one another. And cultures that are different from us scare us. Now, we prepare ourselves when we're going across the world, right? But we don't prepare ourselves when we're walking down the street. And we pass a youth and they throw shade at us, right? Or when we leave here and a millennial's like, that woke me, right? And you're like, what? It what you? And so what we do is just we assume that what we have and what we're giving is better or will change the other people. But what remains is the culture ingrained in neighborhood that keeps some people making $27,000 a year and some people making $42,000 a year. Now, the Coffee Oasis, started by my family, and I'm not in this picture, we were not a stock photo family. This is before my parents went to the Philippines as missionaries. They got so sick they had to come back. When they came back, they moved to this place called Bremerton, Washington. They started taking kids in their home through foster care, and they started connecting with the families of those kids. Well, soon we had people staying in our homes getting off of meth. Okay, that was a big jump, and I'm covering a lot of years, okay? And so we had these people staying in our home, and my dad, who at that time was a pastor, we couldn't go back to the veneer. We couldn't go back to stock photos, and we realized we needed to do something, right? We wanted to live in that world beneath, but what we had to do is we had to get an education in culture, right? Because we were still trying to live in stock photo world when we were entering this world where we were realizing people were seeing one another as zombies. And so we created the Coffee Oasis, a place where everyone could experience belonging. And this is important. This is a picture of our actual kids. And so at the Coffee Oasis, half our staff worked with the coffee side of the coffee shops. It's all a nonprofit, and half our staff work with homeless youth. And so what we do is we make these places where we're not just giving people stuff, but we're helping kids actually grow. We're not just serving them, we're trying to show them how to live. And we hear all this time, trying to bring us back to this other culture, we hear people say, I want to come serve a Thanksgiving meal. And what they mean by that is there's this table, and they're standing on one side of the table, and the kids are on the other side, and they're just ladling something to them, which is good, and that comes from a very good heart. But what that does is it keeps your culture on your side of the table, and it keeps my culture on my side of the table. It keeps your $27,000 culture and my $45,000 culture over here. So, the way this place of belonging looks, I'll show you in JD's story. So, I found this out years later from the police officer that's involved. So, JD went to school carrying a bat. He'd been homeless for 3 days. The security guard at the school said, you can't have a bat here. He said, this is the only thing that makes me feel safe. And so they called the police. Police came. They said, hey, I'll take you wherever you want. He said, I'll go to the Coffee Oasis. That's where I want to go. I can't have a bat at school. I'm just taking me to the Coffee Oasis. And so the police officer drove JD down to the Coffee Oasis. JD walks in the door of the Coffee Oasis, hands the bat over the counter, and then walks to the back. And the police officer, puzzled, follows JD to the back and says, why did you give up the bat? And JD said, because I can't have bats here. See, that is the place of belonging, right? It didn't make any sense for JD at school to give a bat because JD didn't feel safe. But when JD came to the Coffee Oasis and found a place of belonging, JD finally found safety, a place where zombies didn't exist, but people that cared about JD. So what we do is we try to create opportunities. This is a class of kids who have graduated from a job training internship. And we have a variety of services that aren't just giving kids things, but helping them grow, right? Showing them, not just serving them. So helping them where they're at, in the neighborhoods they live, and the zombies they're facing, actually grow, actually change that culture because they're changing. Not by leaving, but by in their community having experiences now to share with their friends and their peers, right? They're inviting their friends down to Coffee Oasis. Let me show you what it looks like where everyone actually can come together. And man, if you need housing, I think they can hook you up with that too, right? And so trying to create opportunities. What you will hear from the Coffee Oasis over and over again, if you're near us, is we talk about changing the world for homeless youth. And what we mean by this is not that you can change the entire world, but there is a world around you, a world that you can reach, a world that is something you can touch, people you can say lovely things to, lives you can change. And so we say, maybe you can't change the whole world, but you can change the world around you. And so we want to invite you into that as the Coffee Oasis moves to Tacoma, soon to open an underage youth shelter and bring our other services where I can, yeah. She just got woke. Okay, thank you.